A last and final, have you ever? Now, have you ever had chordoma in the brain? Have you ever been arrested for walking around with the shopping cart at REI for items to reach Hawaii to talk to Mr. President, former Barack Obama, about serving in the government, Central Intelligence Agency? Have you ever been in a psychiatric hospital with a man named Roy who said defiantly he was an activist? Have you ever marched up to the police precinct on Capitol Hill when John T. Williams was killed and murdered in a crosswalk carving wood by a police officer named Mr. Burke? And then sat in a hospital, lied down on a bed, laid on a bed with pneumonia, homeless. And then later, years after, opened a box, pulled out a coin, and Donald Trump returned victorious after making America great, powerful, and more safe. And excellent. Have you ever rented from a Tibetan landowner who evicts without notice? Twice. Have you ever lived in a Christian men's house home? And Mr. Alpha in charge, Mr. Jesus follower, God loves so much, who drinks colloidal silver and swallows supplements and leaves his meat in the refrigerator to die some more, says to leave those drug dealers who are selling those substances to those children coming home from their schools, academies, and jobs, to leave them alone and move and live somewhere else. Have you ever had those same roommates sit inside quietly listening while you, I, anyone, as an example, gets bullied by those drug dealers, harassed, and then scolded and shamed for not shutting up and being quiet and silent instead. Have you ever had to be homeless in a city as beautiful as Seattle, not out of necessity, but as a requirement to survive in a civilization where housing cost more than plastic surgery and breast implants, Botox, and facelifts? With no drug addiction, no violent temper, but an unfortunate and rare form of bone cancer after college graduation at Western Washington University, and not having a job or a career anymore. Nearly being blind in one eye from the tumor getting so big. The MRI looked more similar to someone with a boulder rock in their head, mind, skull, brain. Have you ever had proton radiation treatment and said to the nurse, "I blacked out"? And had the nurse respond, "Fix it"? Have you ever lived in a psychiatric mental health organization subsidized housing building with rooms in their home called apartments on the rent check, and applied to the United States Army, the United States Navy, and the United States government to be a chaplain? And servicemen. And then receive no response. No answer to a question about skills and honor, courage and bravery in 2001. Have you ever had a neighbor in a psychiatric psychology apartment building who's friends with another neighbor on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and has a golden pussy? Who not only observes in world those who aren't dressed in black and wearing combat boots, who hits a wall, who whispers softly, gently using their voice and then hit some more in a cold, frigid room with no heat? Have you ever applied to MIT and Johns Hopkins University with a PhD dissertation called Psychological Cognition, Quantum Neurology for Adults? And mostly, y'all can fuck off with your mathematics and stop with the system and processes causing y'all's racism now. And lastly, have you ever said to the Joe Rogan podcast, I'd like to be a guest? I'd like to stare ahead at everyone in the room and explain brain and body, consciousness and world, and offer an explanation for what mind has done to planet Earth, self and ego has done to people's lives who are and have been homeless. And most importantly, all of the behavior observed by those police officers and those feminists and those vegan activists and those Antifa soldiers carrying their knives and their machine gun extreme right projectile objects, who say their philosophy and their theory have mathematically solved the equation of poverty, and sat silently and quietly watching passively all of the violence and suffering, and hearing the cries and the yells and the screams in between someone howling about a word, a language, a letter, a dialect, encouraging a race, an ethnicity, a culture to succeed towards a goal of mystery and conspiracy theory. Now,